Evening folks, this is BestInSlot, and tonight we're going to do a little bit of speculation. I know, it's unlike me. And a little bit of wishful thinking about Jurassic World Evolution 2. Now, before we get started, no, a sequel to Evolution has not been confirmed or anything, it's much too early for that. But there are a good few reasons to think we'll be seeing it in 2021. Not only would it coincide with Jurassic World 3, but we know Frontier is working on a licensed title for a global blockbuster franchise for that year thanks to some trademark listings, and really it kind of just makes sense. Evolution made a boatload of money, I guess that depends on the size of the boat, but still, either way, let's live in a world where the sequel is coming and instead focus on how they could make Evolution 2 the best game possible. Let me know in the comments down below what features you'd want in a possible sequel as well. Just to say, as we get started, some people react a little bit negatively to the idea of a sequel, and I understand to an extent given how bare bones Evolution was at launch. But a sequel after 3 years and after pretty good extended support for the original title, that seems more than fair to me. That's not really the point of this video though. I want to focus on ways the game could improve, ways that really aren't feasible for the current game. I also want to say that Evolution is a much better game now than it was at release, even if you haven't bought the DLC. Anyways, let's get started. First up, and probably most importantly, is the basal gameplay loops. These are the things you do to run your park. At the moment, that means building enclosures, digging up and buying dinosaurs, buying buildings, completing contracts, and occasionally handling breakouts, diseases, tornadoes, and sabotage. Evolution has other problems that we'll get to, but personally I think the lack of variety in these gameplay loops is the primary problem with the game. And this is highlighted really well in all the DLCs, wherein despite the new settings, the new dinosaurs, and new story, you always do essentially the exact same thing. Try to stop dinosaurs from breaking out, because at the core of the game there really isn't that much else to do that requires active, exciting participation from the player. If we compare Evolution with Planet Zoo, the latter doesn't really add much in terms of mechanics, but because enclosure design and animal management is much more complex and the creative aspects are substantially more fleshed out, it never feels as though you have nothing interesting to do. Evolution 2, if it exists, is likely to again be a console game. I don't know why I had the squeaky voice. It just doesn't make financial sense for it to be PC limited, so we can't really expect creativity on par with Planet Zoo. It then needs to accommodate for more complex gameplay in some other ways. We can do this by looking at the three sort of areas in the game already, one of which is security. At the moment we can drive our cars around and trank dinosaurs or fix fences, but those cars are invulnerable, and the lack of first-person view makes the experience seem somewhat distant from the player itself. A first-person mode activated when a dinosaur breaks out would make the experience a lot more intense and exciting. Other park builders have already done this, Zoo Tycoon 2 even 20 years ago, and more recently Parkosaurus for example, let you first-person manually aim and tranquilize your dinosaurs on foot. Named security guards who operate in teams with other AI guards could give us a feeling of an actual Jurassic Park breakout. You want to be right up close with the dinosaurs, looking up at them as they tower over you, it's dark and it's raining, it's dramatic and spooky, watching your other guards be picked off as you all desperately try to wrangle these dinosaurs back into control. Jurassic World Evolution is in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about this later, a somewhat sterile game. It needs a dose of personality beyond my beloved Cabot Finch, and giving us named staff members who, yes, can possibly die, and that we can control, is a really good step towards fixing that and making us identify more with the people running our park. As it is, breakouts are often a nuisance, but not really the terrifying, dramatic experience that they should be. That's what Jurassic Park is fundamentally about, that awe-inspiring nature of the dinosaurs, and the terror clashing together. There's other ways to go about this as well, and I'd like to see security expanded in general. Security towers with stationed guards, again that we can control. Security cameras accessible from a management screen akin to Five Nights at Freddy's. Never thought I'd bring that up in a video on Evolution. Lures, bait traps, even turrets for last ditch emergencies. I want dinosaur breakouts to be rarer but much more impactful than they currently are. I want to be spooked, although that may be because it's spooky season, but still. If dinosaur breakouts were made rarer, then we'd need more to do during the game's downtime, i.e. entertainment division and science divisions. For the former, given is more attractions. So far we've had the truck tour added, which I do love, but it is basically a better version of the hamster ball. The return of the JPOG viewing domes, mini attractions a la Planet Zoo, and better variety in shops and entertainment venues, and importantly their visuals, would go a long way to making this a more interesting part of the game. Further to that, benches, bathrooms, fountains, decorations, etc., all these being necessary for your guests to be completely happy, would make park design itself a lot more important. I know Evolution is, at its heart, meant to be a management game. I don't think it's a particularly deep one, but I think Frontier have realised we need more creative control. Not Planet Zoo levels, but certainly more than we've been given. The terrain additions, the rocks and trees, have all been a really good start towards this, but I'd like a prospective sequel to push this a lot further. This is something the current Evolution could definitely improve on as well, but I think to fundamentally change that system, a sequel would help. Our parks are just a little bit dull right now, and I'd rather spend 10 minutes making an area look really nice, with decorations, than send ranger teams all over the parks, refill feeders, and the kind of busy work we have to do right now. Thirdly then, science. One of the tougher areas to improve, but I've got a few ideas. I do think the current system is fundamentally okay. We research dinosaurs, we dig up the fossils, we increase their genome accuracy, and then we produce the dinosaurs. We play God. I'd like to see a few changes to make the process more interesting though. For example, to nab an idea from Prehistoric Kingdom, an exclusive skin for that dinosaur unlocking when you hit 100% in the genome would make the process rewarding rather than at the moment, as it is, a little bit tedious. As it stands, 100% can actually take quite a while, particularly on dinosaurs that only have a single dig site, and because of the granular way in which dinosaurs improve with genome completion, you don't really get much in the way of a reward for that 100%. A skin to strive for or an exclusive genetic or something would liven that process up quite a bit. Genetic mods directly impacting dinosaur behaviour would also make the experience much more interesting. I'm going to say the word interesting quite a lot. As it stands, editing genes on a dinosaur just makes particular numbers go up or down. As with a lot of Evolution, it lacks personality and it feels disconnected with the action and with the dinosaurs themselves. What you're doing is balancing numbers on a sheet to get the maximum efficiency or the maximum effect. You're not really making impactful, meaningful, tangible decisions. If you want to increase a dinosaur's attack, then you could also risk their aggression increasing even when they're in a safe situation. Maybe they'd still go attack over carnivores of the same species or over herbivores of the same species even. Do you want an increased lifespan on your dinosaur? Maybe that increases the chance of diseases being contracted or the dinosaur becoming antisocial. I did actually speculate that this would be in the game from the get-go, and I was a little disappointed it didn't quite make it in, especially in the wake of Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, two films that put so much emphasis on the dangers of genetic mishaps. Hell, even the original film had the breeding velociraptors, and that was of course because they'd been playing around with the genetics. Finally, to tie science in with something we're going to talk further about in a minute, I'd like to see the genetic system expanded into making the dinosaurs themselves even more interesting. Planet Zoo animals come with different behaviours, sizes, and even patterns and colours, including leucistic animals. There's no reason this same system couldn't be applied to Jurassic World Evolution. Let us apply genes to create bigger or smaller dinosaurs by choice, to increase the chances of Lewisism or melanism, to make dinosaurs more vivid in colour or duller, aggressive or passive, social or antisocial, hungry or not hungry, blah 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 blah. Jurassic World is beholden to the film canon, and that is so often cited as a restriction. But it also means they can play around extensively with a genetic system that you can't really do in other similar games and still have it make as much sense. It's time to have a little bit more fun. The canon has established that these genes can do tons of different and exciting stuff, so let's start to see that implemented into the game that is part of that canon. Speaking of the dinosaurs themselves then, they're rarely cited as the primary problem with Evolution, and they're not. They look and sound great, most of them have decent skins, and after the free updates and a bunch of DLC packs, we have an immense variety of dinosaurs available to us. Although I do think some of them are a little neglected, the Stegosaurids, the Ankylosaurids and stuff like that we could do some resizing to make them feel a little bit more A, accurate, and B, just a little bit more interesting across species. A lot of what I've talked about already would go a long way to making the dinosaurs more interesting. We'd have exciting breakouts, that makes them more interesting, new viewing methods with the attractions, and more complex genetics. All of these invariably impact the dinosaurs and how we experience them. But I do think there are improvements to be made here as well. Now, whilst dinosaur behaviour has come a long way since the start with the addition of sleeping, herding, and in cases like the Pachycephalosaurus, the dominance displays, they could still be a little bit more interesting to observe. There's that word again. For one, the social interaction between them is more odd than anything right now. Dinosaurs gather in these weird little circles as though they're committing satanic rituals, which I'd be down for if they actually did commit satanic rituals. We need more interaction both between the same species and across the species. Herbivores moving into defensive positions when threatened, protecting the weak or the old or the young. Nuzzling and pairing off as well, even if mating doesn't make it into the game, which we'll address in a moment. They should be playing together, rutting and play fighting, observing other species and interacting with them. If you add in enclosure items for the dinosaurs, these behaviours can be taken even further. There's no reason a Sinoceratops, for example, wouldn't want to roll around in a mud bath now and again. I mean, who wouldn't, frankly? Or nudge up against a big dead tree or bramble and scratch itself. I don't necessarily need toys and the like, that's not really a feature of the franchise anyway, but more interesting enclosure items don't necessarily need to be purely man-made. To address mating, I've got mixed feelings. I'd love dinosaurs to have the ability to breed, but I don't think it's necessarily as vital as other people do, or indeed as vital as everything else I've talked about tonight. Implementing baby versions of every single dinosaur in the game is an immense amount of work that inevitably takes away from other mechanics. If it can be done and not at the expense of something else that's important, then sure, but if not, I think other areas should be prioritised. That said, the current reasoning for a lack of breeding doesn't make sense. I believe we've been told that the dinosaurs are all female, and that breeding isn't really part of the established canon. But, as far back as the original film, we saw that an all-female population of dinosaurs were able to breed asexually, and even in the current Jurassic World canon, if you read the DPG materials and stuff, the dinosaurs are breeding. It's part of the world, it's established. We just saw a baby Nasutoceratops in Battle at Big Rock. You wouldn't necessarily even have to design baby dinosaurs. We could have a nursery building that houses eggs once your dinosaurs have mated, and then those dinosaurs only become available when they're of the correct age. Have them be smaller, have them be young adults. But you don't really need to make new animals. But you don't actually have to make new models, just have them grow up and get bigger over time. Again, Planet Zoo does something similar, if that is indeed the sticking point. I'd be hopeful though that given Evolution 2 has a pre-existing base to build on and assumedly increased development time, such time constraints are less of a concern regardless. And that's important to remember, it really is. Evolution was built in game dev terms at least, no time at all. As far as we know, it had about a year and a half dev time. There's inevitably a lot that Frontier themselves wanted to include but simply couldn't due to this constraint. It's easy to think of game developers as a big, money-hungry corporation being led by the monopoly man, and to an extent that is true. Frontier are a business, they exist to make money at the end of the day. But on an individual level, most game devs and community managers and everyone else, they're there because they love games. They love building good games or showcasing good games. And history is littered with examples of developers who wanted to do so much more than either time or technology would let them do, and that includes Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, as we well know. I think it is important to be critical, constructively, when something seems amiss, when a game can be clearly improved, or when bad decisions are made. But it's also worth remembering that behind every company is a bunch of real people who do just want to make the best game possible. They'll make mistakes, but I think Frontier have improved Evolution immensely over the last year or so, despite the constraints of the original game. And really, that's why I'd be excited for a sequel. It's a chance to build on the current base, to focus on new and interesting mechanics, to take this year and a half of feedback from you folks at home, and to implement it as best they can, as well as their own ideas and desires. People feel a sequel is, grabbing at money basically, but it's also a part of all media industries since the dawn of time essentially. There's only so much you can do with a core game before a second go around is necessary. We've seen this with every major franchise on the planet, we really have. But a discount or maybe an in-game bonus of a few dinosaurs for people who own the first game would probably go some way to stifling a little bit of any such hostility. Now, I'm just going to go off script just for a second as some new ideas pop up. There's a lot of things we could have talked about tonight, other ideas for Jurassic World Evolution 2, and I really want to hear your guys' thoughts. What else should we be adding to the game? What other mechanics? What other things? The only other thing that really popped into my mind is the expansion of the story. Evolution was hyped up quite a bit as having like a proper story in a park builder game, but as we've seen if you've been watching my 1 year playthrough where I very much focused on the story, that story doesn't really exist. It just doesn't. I do feel this is one area where Evolution is probably constrained by the existing canon. It's quite hard to tell a new story when you've got established characters in there. We're all very excited to see Dr. Rooney and Malcolm, for example. But the problem inherently with that is because you're telling a story in the Jurassic World universe as we know it, the stories you can tell are inherently limited. What I would like to do for a sequel, I know it means a lack of Malcolm, blah 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 blah, but given we know this next game, if it does exist, is going to be post-Fallen Kingdom, and probably something to do with Jurassic World 3, where dinosaurs are all over the world, you know, several different companies are making dinosaurs. There's no reason we couldn't just invent a new company for the first time. It doesn't have to be InGen for once, it doesn't have to be Masrani. It could be a brand new company. And it could be a brand new company, and that would fit perfectly within the newly established canon. And that will hopefully give Frontier a lot more room to make new characters, new villains, new protagonists, and have a story that is just a little bit more interesting. Planet Zoo's tutorial level that we played during the beta had as much story as basically the entirety of Evolution, so I really hope this is somewhere they push quite a lot harder. Either way, back on script. That's all from me, folks. I'm sure there's plenty more that could be added here, but I am immensely sleepy, and there's like a trillion cars outside and they keep beeping and I keep having to like stop recording whilst they go and it's getting really annoying. So I'm going to move on, but do let me know what you think of these ideas in the comments down below, and please do let me know your own as well. How do you make a perfect sequel to Evolution? Give me your thoughts, and if you're a cool kid, throw me a like in the meantime. Even if you're not a cool kid, feel free to throw me a like. Thanks for joining me, cheers much love as always, bye bye. Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to help support me a little bit more, you can do so at patreon.com/bestinslot. There's a link in the description down below. Every little really does help in times like these, but it's not at all expected, and by just watching the video you've already helped me out massively, and it makes you a pretty cool person, so well done you. Thanks for joining me either way, I'll see you next time.